right. Hello, Bigger Pockets. Andrew Cushman here. Good to be back with you talking about multifamily. And let me make sure that I'm actually can't see the slides here. So let me make sure this is sharing properly. Let me see here. All right. And all right, well, I've at least got it on the screen. So if you see me looking off to the side, that's because I'm looking at the slides over here. But needless to say, the information is the same. And for those of you on Instagram, good to see you. Good to see you all joining. Please say hello. Let us know where you're coming from. And if you're on Instagram and you're wondering, hey, where are the slides? They are over on Facebook. So go to Facebook Live and on Bigger Pockets, Bigger Pockets page, and that's where you'll see the actual slides. And you put your comments there. We'll be definitely answering the questions from Facebook and from Instagram as we can. And if you happen to miss something, if I mention a resource or a person or a book or something like that, don't worry. This is recorded, and you'll be able to go back and listen to it and get that information. And if I can get a chance, I'll pop it into the notes on Facebook. But again, it's recorded, and you can go there to do it. Tufang, good to see you from St. Paul, Minneapolis. I gotta give you credit, man. You're on Bigger Pockets a lot, and that's awesome. That's probably why you're out there doing deals, because you spend so much time networking with the right people. So, all right, well, we're gonna go ahead and get going. And what we're talking about is we started last week on 8 steps to buy your first or 10th multifamily property. The stuff we're talking about applies whether you're just trying to get your first duplex or fourplex, or whether you're going for your 8th one and now you're trying to get a 50 unit or something like that. Hello, Hugo from Palmdale, California. You're probably pretty toasty warm right now. So this applies across the board, whether you're big, small, or you've just done one, or you've already done a whole bunch. And you can, again, this is the high level steps and procedure of how you either get going or keep going. So let's see. Let's go ahead and jump into the next one. So all right. So last week we talked about how to choose a market. And of course, we won't get into the details of that now, but just a quick recap is you want to look for markets that support your goals, the type of properties that you're buying, how you're going to manage them. And regardless of all that, you want markets where you have a tailwind, right? We have job growth, population growth, and therefore a higher probability of rent growth, which is going to make your rental properties cash flow more and have higher value when you go to sell. So that was last week. This week, part 2, is how to build a team, right? You hear a lot about that on podcasts, Bigger Pockets, you read in books, team. And I know from when I got started, 2 things I would say is, number one, the whole idea of team was a bit overwhelming and intimidating. And 2, that if I were to say what my biggest mistakes were getting going in this business, was I didn't build a big enough team soon enough, right? I definitely wore all the hats for too long. So so keep that in mind. Don't be intimidated, and build the team sooner than you think you need them. So the first thing, though, is just, well, how do we define team? And thank you for the hearts on Instagram. Please, if this is helpful, hit the heart button, like on Facebook. Share this with anyone who you think it might be helpful for, that we can maybe help them get going along too. And we'll keep sharing more information. So, all right, back to defining team. A lot of times when someone hears, oh, I got to build a team, it's like, okay, well, I need to hire this person, or I need this high level person here. And what I want to say is step back and redefine what you think of as team, right? Don't have a limiting belief that it has to be a high level partner or someone that you've got to pay a big salary to or anything like that. A team member, to me, is defined as anybody that helps me achieve my goals and frees up my time to be able to do higher value work. Okay. So by that definition, a team member literally could be hiring a gardener to save me an hour and a half a week so I'm not mowing the grass and cleaning up leaves, right? So now I can go take that hour and a half and I can spend it looking at more deals, or spend that time with my family, or surfing, or doing a hobby, so that I'm more refreshed for when I am working on deals, right? So keep in mind, a team member doesn't have to be this huge commitment. It's really anybody that helps you get towards your goals. And also keep in mind that the best team member is somebody that, by doing so, you're also helping them reach their goals, right? So let's go back to the landscaper example. Maybe that's someone who's trying to build a landscaping business, right? Or trying to add clients, and you're helping them build their business. So we're going to go through all of the, multifamily specific team members here over the next 45 minutes or hour. But again, don't let that be a limiting belief. Anybody that you can use to help save you time to focus more on your investing business is a team member, right? So, all right. Hello, we got someone from Connecticut. Good to have you on. So I want to ask post a couple questions here to our Facebook crowd and on Instagram. And just real quick, let us know, how long have you been investing, right? So that could be, oh, hey, I've been investing 3 years because I bought a rental, 3 years ago, and then I've been doing Airbnb. It could be, I've been doing multifamily for 10 years. So just let us know, how long have you been investing? Is this something you're just trying to get into, or is it something that you've been doing for a long time? So we got Gary Pilkington has been investing for 7 years. That's awesome. You got started at a good time in the market. Oh, wow. We've got Quincy Lockett, 20 years. You've seen some cycles. So guys, whenever you come across someone like Quincy, who's been in this for 2 decades, that's a good guy to know, because he's seen more than just up, right? So we've got a couple people on here who've been in for just a few months. Family business since 2008. Let's see, Eddie 1081, 4 years. So all right, well, we got a great mix here. Oh, and Gary's in California also. And D'Anthony Edwards, 1 year on Facebook. So we got quite a good mix. And hopefully that this information will be helpful to all of you. So, all right, we got one other question. Thank you, everybody, for the responses. I really appreciate that. I love knowing kind of where everyone is. So the next question is, who was your first or most important team member, right? So for some of you who've been in the business for a decade, we got a couple of people who've been in for 3, 4, 10, and even 20 years. Think back, using the very broad definition that we started with, who was your first team member, right? Was it, oh, hey, congratulations, Melody, first rental property this February. All right, good deal. You got started when a lot of people were too scared to. So, all right, Winnie Black says his first team member was his wife. You know what? I don't know if you've ever heard me speak, but that's my answer to that as well. Whenever someone asks you, hey, what was your first team member? And on a panel or something, my answer is I hired a very intelligent, hardworking, and competent wife. So that really, and she's my business partner to this day. And it's been awesome. So we've got Into Messi on Instagram says my dad. Good. We have another boyfriend, family members. Family members make great team members, especially kids, because you can tell them what to do and they better listen, right? On Facebook here, we've got D'Anthony says first team member was a realtor. And Gary says first team member was an old family friend who has been an investor for a couple of decades. That is a great first team member, because you've got someone who's experienced and has a lot of knowledge, and probably can double as a bit of a mentor, right? So great team member. And then too, on Facebook says, other than the wife, most important team member was our hard money lender. So absolutely, hard money lender can be a critical team member, especially if you're doing smaller properties and deep value adds and flipping and all of that. So, all right, great. That's all great answers to that. Now notice that nobody answered, my most important team member was I hired a chief financial officer, or I hired a high-powered attorney, or I got someone that I had, I got an acquisitions guy that I pay $100,000 a year, or something like that. No one answered that, right? So when you're looking at team, keep that in mind. So, all right, well, how to build a team? If you could boil this entire talk down to one word, it's referrals, right? Again, go back to the answers that we just got from everybody. And I think everyone, and unfortunately I couldn't read them all. They were streaming by really fast. But every one of them was, wife, family member, realtor, partner, somebody that was already kind of close in that person's sphere of influence or connections. And that's a form of referral. The best, I mean, you can definitely go out and just cold call and build a list and interview and get great team members, and sometimes that is what you need to do. But the bottom line, best way to do it is referral. And we're gonna dig down a little bit deeper into how to do that for each category here in just a moment. But if there's one thing you take away, it's find your team members from referrals. And sometimes all you got to do is just talk about what you're doing and who you're looking for and who you'd like to meet. And that's the best way to attract them, or to get someone to be like, oh, hey, Gary, I met a guy last week who I really think would be a good fit for you and could help build your business. I'm going to connect you guys when I get home tonight, right? So that kind of thing, that's referral as well. All right, so who do you need on your team? Again, it depends on your goals. Not every team member that we're going to talk about applies equally to everyone. Because it depends on your goals, right? So going back to some of the stuff we talked about in last week's episode was, if you're looking to say buy 5 fourplexes in your local market and you're going to self-manage them, well, you're not going to need the property management person necessarily on your team, at least not third party, unless you grow so big that you can maybe hire someone to do it directly for you and not be part of an external company. So who do you need on your team will depend on your goals. And I'll try to tailor that as we go, what kind of applies. So here's your core team. And note it, now hopefully most of you have at least heard of or read David Green's book, Long Distance Real Estate Investing. If you haven't, I highly recommend, of course, published by Bigger Pockets. If you haven't, I highly, highly recommend you get that book, because in the book, he has what he calls his core 4, right? And those are the core 4 team members. If you notice here, I got a lot more than 4. But these, I'm trying to cover kind of everybody that you may need in some capacity. But that book applies whether you're doing single family, long distance, fourplexes, or 200 units long distance. So your core team is, number 1, admin. The first true hire for most people is an admin person. And again, that doesn't need to necessarily be someone who comes to your office or your house or anything like that. More than likely, that's going to be, in fact, actually for most people, that's a virtual assistant, right? Anything that you can systematize and hand off. It could be setting up calendar appointments, maybe setting up showings for properties. Maybe it could be making procedures. It could be submitting paperwork to lenders. Just any of that, just paperwork job that tends to snowball and grow as you become a bigger and bigger investor is something that can be handled by an admin. And that's something where I waited too long to bring an admin person on. And our admin person actually was so good that she now is risen up and does way more than admin. But that is really in most cases, one of the first true actual hires. And the best part is especially if you go with like a virtual assistant, it's not necessarily a full-time hire. You can get someone part-time. It can be anywhere from $3 to $12 an hour, depending on what level of training and service you go with. But admin is usually the first hire. All right, Zmog10 asked on Instagram, what was the name of the book of investing out of state? Again, that's David Green. Hopefully all you guys know who he is at this point, but David Green's Long Distance Real Estate Investing. It really lays out a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today and that we're just going to touch on. Well, David goes into it really deep and detailed in his book. So, and we got it posted here on Facebook as well. So the next one is brokers and agents. Again, most deals come through brokers and agents in the multifamily world. Doesn't necessarily mean they're listed, but just a couple of really good brokers can dramatically build your business. So we're going to talk about brokers and agents. Property managers, again, if you're using third party, then that's very clear that you're going to be looking for a property management, not only a property management company, but an actual property manager to run the property for you and actually take care of the day-to-day operations. And if you're self-managing, what many people find is as you grow past a certain number of units, and it seems like it's somewhere in the 10 to 20 range, that the day-to-day management of those things, showing the property, getting leases completed, chasing down tenants who aren't paying rent, just all the paperwork and day-to-day operations, work orders, maintenance requests, all that stuff takes more and more of your time, and you're no longer looking for deals. So a lot of people that I know that have just kind of built their own local self-managed portfolio will eventually bring in a person in-house to help them manage that. And actually, that again is something that an admin person can help with, especially if you get one of the, a little bit more highly trained one, or someone that you can train. They can handle admin, and most of running a small portfolio of rental units falls into the admin category. So again, that's why we had that first on the team. So property management, if you're doing it in-house, admin can help with that. If not, that is one of, I would even say the most, assuming you have deals, that's probably property manager is probably the next most important team member. Contractors, if you're doing any kind of rehab, obviously you need a contractor. And then if for maintenance repairs and things like that, if you don't have an in-house maintenance guy, you're going to need contractors to be able to rely on to help get that done. Next one, and somebody already mentioned this on Instagram, you're going to need a lender, right? Or actually sometimes multiple lenders. That might be a hard money lender. That's what a couple of people on Instagram said was one of their first partners was a hard money lender, or team members was a hard money lender. If you're looking at more stabilized properties or larger multifamily, you're going to want a loan broker who can look at various options for you, who can get you bridge loans, can get you agency debt, who can maybe help find bank loans, and help you search for the best option out there for not only for the property you're buying, but for your business plan for it, right? So Gary on Facebook says he grew a contractor. His own son went that route. That's another great way to do it. Although you definitely have to have patience and persistence for that to work out well for you. So an insurance broker, that's something that's often very much overlooked in multifamily world is proper insurance, and a good insurance broker is key to that, because you want to be an expert investor, not an expert in insurance. So you want to know just enough to make sure that you're doing the right things and getting the right coverage, but you want an insurance broker who can take care of that for you, right? So, and then the last one on here is contract attorney. So this does vary a little bit by state, but if you're buying a single family house, most of the time, or even a duplex or a fourplex, you've got a standard real estate form that you fill out, you put your offer on, they negotiate a few things, and it's done. If you're buying multifamily, especially in certain states, then you actually have an attorney that negotiates that contract for you. And generally speaking, if you want to be the person who writes the first draft of the attorney, right? It's the equivalent of having home court advantage, because now the language of the entire thing is your language. And yes, seller is going to come back and ask for some things to change, but not the whole thing, right? So you're going to want a contract attorney. All right, let me see. We'll skip on here. So, okay, this is one of, for deal flow, brokers are absolutely critical. And one of the questions I get more frequently is like, oh, Andrew, how do I talk to these brokers? How do I find them? How do I get them to take me seriously? All those kind of things. Again, just how do you talk to them? That could be a whole nother episode. Maybe we'll do on another series. But for today, we're going to talk about connecting with brokers and how to find them in the first place. So for those who are more kind of just getting started, let's just say, let's say you live in LA and you want to invest in San Antonio, Texas. All right. And you're like, okay, I don't know anybody in this market. I don't know any of the brokers. what do I do? How do I talk to these people? How do I find the brokers that have the deal? Well, first thing you do is you can go to, again, depending on what size property you're looking at. If you're looking at stuff under 10 units, definitely start with the residential MLS. If you're looking for bigger stuff and sometimes the smaller stuff as well, the two main sites I recommend are LoopNet, LOOPNET, and Crexi, CREXI. And again, if you're on Facebook, that's on the slide and you can see it. And if you're on Instagram and you can't get to Facebook, just go to the recording afterwards and all this stuff will be on there. So, for those of you who've heard of those websites, you're like, wait a second, I thought everyone says that you can't get good deals off of there. Well, one, that's not entirely true. But two, you're not going there for the deals. You're going there to see what brokers are listing the most properties, and that gives you the list of brokers that you need to call, right? So let's say you're looking for properties in San Antonio, Texas. You go on LoopNet, go on Crexi, and you see a listing. You're like, well, that's the type of property I would want. Print that off or save it and say, okay, I'm going to call that broker, and keep doing that. Build a list of brokers that seem to be listing the types of properties that you want, and start calling them and just say, hey, I saw your listing. It looks like a great property, something that we'd be great to add to our portfolio, and had a few questions, right? And the point is not to necessarily get that deal. It's to start the relationship and look at additional deals. All right, so we've got a bunch of requests on Instagram to repeat those two resources. I'll do it one more time, and then again, this is recorded and it'll be available on Facebook. So LoopNet, LOOPNET.com, and Crexi, CREXI. Those are the two sites. In addition to that, you want to get yourself on the mailing lists for all of the brokers in your target market. So, okay, well, how do you do that? That's actually super simple and really one of the most effective things you can do. And again, free. Everything we're talking about is free. So just think of all the broker. And all right, so if someone on Instagram likes free, I just saw all the hearts. Appreciate that. And please, again, hit the hearts, hit the like button, hit the share button. Let us know if we're on the right track and this is hopefully helpful to you. But so getting on the broker mailing lists. All you have to do is go to the website for all the big brokers that you can think of. So Marcus and Millichap, thank you for the hearts. Colliers, Berkadia, Cushman and Wakefield, and all of a sudden now I'm drawing a blank. There used to be ARA. There's Franklin Street, CBRE, right? And for those of you like, oh my gosh, I couldn't write that down, or I'm driving. Again, it's being recorded, but also all you probably need to do is just Google top 10 multifamily brokers in the United States, right? And you'll probably get a ranking of who has the most volume. Go to the thank you, Hugo. Just posted those resources in Instagram. So for those of you on Instagram, he just took care of that for you. Thank you, Hugo. I really appreciate the support. So go to those websites, and usually you can create a profile. And part of that profile is what market you're interested in and what types of properties. And you can go ahead and sign up for being on the mailing list. And then every time there's a listing for that type of property in that market, you're going to get an email blast from that broker, and you call. Don't reply on email. Remember, the goal here is relationship building. So you want to take a look at it and then call them and say, hey, you know what? Thanks for emailing me this property. And yes, everybody knows it was an automated thing. They didn't directly email it to you, but that's okay. You still got it. You say, hey, thanks for emailing this to me. Looks like a great asset. Hey, I've had a few questions. You talk about it. Hopefully you can maybe get into some just personal stuff. Like he mentions, oh yeah, I was water skiing last weekend. Like, oh, I love water skiing. Where do you go? Or, what kind of boat do you have? Or just anything you can naturally connect on. And then take a look at the property, and then call and follow up again, right? And say, all right, well, hey, I looked at this. It's a great asset. Here's where I'm coming out price-wise. Do you think I should make an offer? Or, you know what, this isn't going to work for me, and here's the reasons why. Do you have anything else that you're looking at that could be a good fit, right? So that's how you connect with brokers. That's how you build that critical team member on your in your investing business. And then also don't be afraid to talk to other investors. A lot of people kind of keep their relationships close to the chest. But if you're new to a market and somebody who's in that market, you can say, hey, who are your favorite brokers to talk to in San Antonio or whatever. And most people will be like, oh, well, yeah, I know this guy and this guy. Or like in the Southeast, I think Cushman and Wakefield does something like 60% of the deal volume, right? So okay, well, if I want to see a lot of listings, I'm going to go to Cushman and Wakefield's website, and I'm going to sign up to be on their mailing list. So those are some of the key ways to connect with brokers, and they are probably your most important team member in terms of deal flow. So I'm going to move to the next slide, take a sip of water. If anyone posts a question while I'm doing that, I will be happy to answer it real quick, and we'll get going in just a second. All right. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, cool. All right. So we talked about this, hiring a property manager. This is primarily focused on third-party property management, which, if you're going back to our previous example, if you're in California and you're buying a 10 unit or a 200 unit in San Antonio, you are not going to want to self-manage that. That is going to be a huge headache and probably not very effective. So you're going to want to find a property management company. And again, getting back to what we talked about early on, if there was one thing you could remember from this entire talk is what? Referrals, right? Get referrals. Build your team through referrals. So the number one way to get a good property management company that will help you make the most out of your property and not run it into the ground is whenever you talk to a broker and you're looking at a property or a deal that they presented to you, somewhere in the conversation, just say, hey, if you were buying this property, who are the top 2 or 3 companies or people that you would recommend to manage this, or that you would hire to manage this property for you? And they're going to say, oh, yeah, you know what? The current management company is great. Or sometimes they're like, well, don't keep the current management company. But in reality, most times they're going to rattle off 2 or 3 people or companies that they feel like are a good fit, right? And you keep doing that with different brokers in the market, and you build a list of property management companies or individuals that you could hire. And do the same thing if you talk to lenders, if you talk to contractors, say, hey, or especially other investors, right? This is another one where the Bigger Pockets community can be a huge benefit, right? Go on the Bigger Pockets forum and say, hey, look, I'm buying a 10 unit in San Antonio, Texas. Can anyone give me a couple of referrals for a great property management company that you've either used or that right? And that's one of those things that it is easier to get people to share, because, if I'm using a property management company and Awesome 2142 from Instagram reaches out and says like, hey, I'm buying 100 units in Atlanta. Can you recommend anyone to manage that? And I say, yeah, you know what? Call this person at the management company I use, and then Awesome 2142 becomes their client. My property management company is appreciative because I just got them a new client, right? So most people are willing to share very openly who they think would be a great property management company or person, individual. So that's key. That's really the best way to do it. Ask for referrals from everybody in the market that you talk to. Go on Bigger Pockets and just say, hey, everybody, I'm in San Antonio. Who would you recommend? Build a list. Let's say you get a list of 10. Go on the internet, do a bunch of research, look at the properties they manage, all of that kind of thing, and figure out, all right, do they have bad ratings? How good are their websites? And you'll be able to probably eliminate half the list, boil it down to, let's say, maybe 5. Do phone interviews with the remainder of that list, get it down to 2 or 3, and then go out and meet in person with that property management company. And then make a decision and hire one. By following that process, we have never had a bad property management experience. You'll hear all kinds of property manager nightmare stories on podcasts and then Bigger Pockets and all of that. If you follow the procedure that I just told you, it's not a guarantee, but your results will be much, much better than what you typically hear. And then also, what do you ask these companies? Again, that's a whole webinar, but you want to ask them questions that, help you figure out, do they specialize in the type of asset that you're buying, right? If you're buying a 10 unit in San Antonio, you don't want a company that specializes in 200 unit A-class luxury properties, because they're not going to know how to run your property, and they're not going to really focus on it because it's not going to make them much money compared to those big ones, right? So, ask them questions about what they specialize in, what their fees are, how they hire people, what kind of relationship they like to have with the owner, right? I would recommend staying away from property management companies that want you as the owner to completely stay out of it and just read the report every month. That's not a good idea. You don't want to be involved in the day-to-day, but you want to be a good asset manager. And by keeping tight management of the asset management of the property management company. And so you're going to ask a lot of those kind of questions. So again, bottom line, how do you get the property manager or management company added onto your team? Referrals, build a list, interview to narrow it down on the phone, interview in person to make your final hire. This is probably your most important person on your team as far as helping guarantee the success of your investments once you have them. Property management is absolutely critical, especially when doing it at a distance, which you'll know how to do after you read David's book. So, all right, getting to the closing table. You've got a deal under contract. You have your property management figured out. You know who's going to do that for you. And now you got to get to the closing table. So you need a few other team members to be able to do that. Number one, we talked about this a little bit before, you're going to need a lender. Now, there's a couple different ways to do that. One, you can go, if you've got a good relationship with a particular lender, you can go direct to that lender and try to get a loan from them. The other way is a loan broker. And you say, okay, well, great, Andrew, which one do I do? Both, right? So let me give you some examples. We're in the process of buying a smaller property in Florida right now. And I have a long-standing relationship with a very small regional bank. And I literally just called up the vice president of the bank, said, hey, we're buying this deal. Kind of here's the overview. Would you guys do the loan? He said, yeah, we can do that loan. Sent in some things. He took it to the board, got it approved, done deal. Easy, very relationship based. If you know what kind of product you're looking for, and you already have you can build a relationship with someone who has that product, you can go direct to that lender. Also, like say, for example, we did closed a larger deal earlier this year, and we knew we wanted Fannie Mae agency debt. So we went straight to a lender that specializes in Fannie and Freddie agency debt, right? But you say, well, okay, Andrew, I'm a little bit newer at this, or I'm not sure what the options are. I'm buying my 10 unit in San Antonio or my fourplex. Should I get bridge debt? Should I do hard money? Or that's when you want a really good loan broker. And a lender is somebody who's actually either lending their own money or lending on behalf of a lender like Fannie or Freddie, right? A loan broker, the difference is that person is going out on your behalf and shopping your deal to a whole bunch of different lenders, right? So they're going to take it and say, they're going to come back to you, and give them a couple of weeks if you can, right? So they're going to come back to you and say, okay, let's see. I'm going to pick a person here. So we have I9 Bash on Instagram, right? So I9 says, hey, I got this deal under contract in San Antonio. It's 10 units. And I'm going to spend 150 grand on renovations, and here's where I'm going to get the rents in a year and all of this. What kind of options do I have for loan? So you give that to a good loan broker, and they're going to take it to bridge lenders, and they're going to get quotes. They may even take it to some local regional banks, and they're going to get quotes. If it's big enough, they might take it to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac to get you agency financing, and they can come back and say, all right, I9, here's all the different options depending on how what your business plan is. We can get a bridge loan. We can get long-term fixed. I mean, all the different options. That's what a good loan broker will do for you. And a really good loan broker will say, hey, I9, we got all these options, but based on the business plan that you told me, I really think these two are the best fit. And here's why, right? That's what a good loan broker is going to do. And that loan broker typically will get paid, it varies, but let's just say maybe 1% of the loan balance for doing all that work for you and making and helping find you a great loan. And candidly, I am more than happy to pay that because getting the right debt piece is a huge component of a successful deal. So again, how do you find those loan brokers? Candidly, the first thing I would do if I didn't have a relationship, I would get on Bigger Pockets and the forums and connect with people and say, hey, who do you guys like to use for loans for my 10 unit in San Antonio? And get some referrals. Again, that's something that most people are very happy to share because by referring that person, that team member to you, they're usually going to get some appreciation from that person that they referred to you. So it's a win-win all around, and it's not hard to get that. And also, when you're talking with brokers, say, hey, who do you see doing the highest loan volume in San Antonio on this type of deal? Oh, well, there's this one bank that loves these things, right? And that's literally what will happen sometime. You'll find like one bank that just loves your type of deal. And that can be a very profitable and prosperous relationship for both you and for the bank. All right, the next one is contract attorney. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. This won't apply to everybody in every market, but if you're in a market, it varies by state. Some markets, you do everything through title and escrow. Other markets, two attorneys have to sit down at the table, and it's this expensive, fancy thing. I don't know why it has to be that way, but I'm thankful to operate in title and escrow states. But a contract attorney. So if you're buying a duplex or a fourplex off the MLS, this probably doesn't apply because you're just going to use the Association of Realtors form and write an offer on that. But if you're buying a commercial property, which is 5 units or larger, the bigger the property, the more likely you're going to want a really good contract attorney. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's an attorney who will draft the initial contract, purchase and sale agreement for the acquisition of that property. And some sellers will offer to provide the contract in the first draft of it, which is fine as long as you have an attorney to review it for you. But if at all possible, have your attorney make the first draft, because I mentioned this earlier. It's like having the home court advantage, right? Now the whole thing is more or less worded to not to necessarily to your advantage, but in a way that's acceptable to you, right? And then the seller is going to come back and say, oh, we want to change this and that, but they can't come back and change the entire thing, right? So you're going to want a good contract attorney. Again, gets back to one of the very first slides, referrals. Ask other sponsors that I think just in the last month, I've probably had 4 or 5 people email me and be like, hey, Andrew, I got a deal under contract in this area. Do you know a good attorney? And these people already kind of know where we work. And yeah, I'm happy to connect you. And they're doing deals, and these attorneys are helping them with their contracts, right? So ask for referrals. If you don't know somebody, go on the Bigger Pockets forums. And again, start getting recommendations. Syndication attorney. This is one that also will not apply to everybody. If you are buying properties with your own money, as far as the equity goes, like, so let's say you're buying a 10 unit and you're getting a loan for $750,000 and you're putting in the other $250,000, you're not going to need this. A syndication attorney is what you need if you are going to be using other people's money for the equity in more than one, right? So basically, one person's a partner. If you're getting more than one person and they don't have management responsibility or management rights, now you're doing a syndication, and that's when you're going to want to get a syndication attorney to help make sure that you do that legally and that you are protected and that you're on the good side of the SEC. I can tell you, everybody right now, I use Gene Trowbridge. I've used him for about over a decade now. He's very easy to find. Just Google him. He'll come up. He's been around forever. He literally wrote the book on it. There's a handful of others out there that are also really good. I have not used them, but I'm happy to share that, I work with Gene, and I've been very happy with him every deal that we've done. So, all right, let me keep moving here. Lots of questions on Instagram. A lot of them don't directly apply to what we're talking about, but if you post a question and it's directly to what we're talking about, I will try to grab that. It's definitely a little bit easier on Facebook. So if you can hop over to Facebook and do that, I will definitely get to that. But let me see here. So you know what? Intomess on Instagram does ask, and this kind of applies to lenders that we were just talking about. Would you do the loan with personal credit? Generally speaking, commercial loans don't really dive deep into your personal credit. They might just say, "Oh, what's your credit score?" And as long as it's not bad, then they're gonna be like, "Okay." And if what you're asking is recourse, meaning you're personally guaranteeing the loan, I definitely try to avoid that. But sometimes for a really good deal, if I have high confidence in it, I will do recourse in order to do the deal and get really good terms, especially if it's a relationship loan, right? So that bank I mentioned earlier, I do have a recourse loan with them. Partly because of the deal and partly because of the relationship with that bank. So thank you for the question. So, all right, finding good contractors. This is probably the bane of every investor's existence, especially these days where contractors are even in higher demand, and the contractors are having their life's not easy either because they can't get the workers to actually do the work, right? So what's the first thing on here? I can, everybody say it. All right, that's right. You're right. Referrals, right? Going back to what we said in the beginning, best way to find a good contractor is definitely referrals. This is one where, if you're buying that 10 unit in San Antonio and you ask some other investors, hey, do you have a really good contractor you can refer me to? Some investors will kind of keep that close to their chest because they're like, no, man, he's already too busy. I need him to do my work, and I don't want to have him go cover your stuff, right? So, but still, referrals is number one, and really, what's one of the best places to find referrals? The Bigger Pockets forums, the Bigger Pockets communities. You've got, I think 2 million people now are members, and I guarantee there's going to be some people who not only have a great contractor for you, but are willing to share that information. The next best source is your property management company, right? So we talked about that a few minutes ago. You've been through the process. You've got a great property management company, maybe two. Well, if they are a great property management company and they have a lot of experience in that market and they manage a lot of properties in that market, they're going to have a lot of contractors, right? Because they need people to do work on all these properties. And that's actually my absolute preferred number one way to get contractors is to ask our property management company. Because usually you can say, oh yeah, you know what, this company has done, replaced countertops for us in, 18 other properties. They do a great job. They're reasonably priced. They're on time, all that kind of thing. So property management company referrals is, I'd say, not only the most effective, but it's probably the easiest, right? Because they're like, oh yeah, we got a relationship. We'll have the guy come out, give you a quote. I'll send it to you in a week once we have it, right? So that's not only probably the most effective, it's probably the easiest. We already talked about other investors. And then this is one sometimes it pays to be a little bit creative. Thank you for all the hearts on Instagram, and hopefully on Facebook we're getting lots of likes and shares. But this is another one where it can be a little bit creative, right? I've heard stories of this, and I've done it myself, where I'm driving by a property and I see work going on. I've stopped and said, hey, what's the, it looks like you do great work. Who's the contractor here? What's the name of the company? Sometimes contractors will put signs out in front of the property saying, renovation being done by, fill in the blank. I'll take a picture of that sign and then go check them out, right? So keep your eye. Not only do you go through all of this referral process that we talked about, you want to keep your eyes open for just who's out there doing work, right? And who seems to be doing a good job. So all right, that is contractors. All right, who else are some of the people that you might need? So we talked about closing attorney. In many cases, that's going to be the contract attorney can double as a closing attorney. But if you don't have a contract attorney and you're in a state where it's not title and escrow, then you're going to want a closing attorney. And how do you know if you need that? Well, if you're completely new to a market, just ask other people in the market. what they do and how that market works, again, probably the best way is Bigger Pockets forums, right? So a bookkeeper, right? This is not something that you're necessarily going to need right off the bat, but the more properties you get, the more bookkeeping can become a giant time suck. And it's super important, but it's not adding value to your business, right? So you say, well, geez, Andrew, I can't afford to hire a full-time bookkeeper and blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't either. I hire a bookkeeper that's part of a service, and we get charged just based on the number of transactions that they enter for us. And it's actually, considering the amount of work that takes, it's a very, very good deal. So as soon as you get beyond a deal or two, get a bookkeeper, get that off your plate, spend the time doing deals. Also, when it comes time to do taxes, it's going to make your life way, way easier to have good books. And when you go to sell, right? If you're selling a single family house or a duplex, not as big of a deal because people are just going to look at the value and comps and all of that. But if you're selling a multifamily property, then it's going to be based on your financials and how clean those financials are. And so if you have a good bookkeeper, it's going to make it that much easier to have those, which is going to make your buyer's life easier to try to get a loan. And therefore you have a higher probability of getting a better price on your deal, right? So title and escrow company, this is something, again, depends on the market that you're in. As far as some states use them, some states don't. But also, this is a lot of times sellers like to specify which title and escrow company you use. And that's actually kind of standard. I try to use my preferred one if I can, but that's not a big deal if the seller has one. And if the seller says, I want to use this company, what we do is we just go do a little bit of research. Make sure they're a legitimate company. Make sure they're not going to run off with our deposit in the night or disappear, or it's not just the seller's cousin or his 13-year-old posing as a title and escrow company or something like that. We want to make sure they're a legitimate company. But again, if the seller doesn't have one, if you don't have one, referrals. Get on Bigger Pockets forum. Say, hey, I'm buying a 10 unit in San Antonio. What title and escrow company have you had a great experience with? And also, same thing. If you can go to a meetup, or either in person or online, talk. So either in person or on the forums and Bigger Pockets. But again, just find other people, other investors in your market. And then also, who did I miss? Right? I'm curious if while we're wrapping up here in the next few minutes, are there any other team members that I left out that you either have a question about, or that you think we missed, or that's been important to you and that you use? Because again, trying to give everybody an overview and a map to how to do all of this in an hour. There's probably some people that we missed. So if you think there's anybody that we missed, please go ahead and ask or add that. Love to hear your comments. So, all right, it is now question and answer time. Let me see here. Make sure I didn't miss anything on Facebook and Instagram. If you got any questions, go ahead and please post them. And it can apply to anything that we've talked about here over the last 50 minutes or so. And we'll jump on it. So, hey, we have Gary on Facebook. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Gary asks for smaller portfolios where you are still self-managing. He's actually responding to my question. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate that. He recommends cleaning service for tenant transitions, lawn service if appropriate. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Thank you, Gary. That's perfect. That gets back to what we said at the beginning of this, right? Keep an open mind as to what a team member is. It doesn't necessarily have to be this big formal relationship that costs a lot of money or anything like that, right? Yeah, if you're managing a smaller portfolio, a cleaning service that is reliable, does a good job, shows up on time, gets it done quickly, so you're not having tenants show up to a dirty apartment or a dirty rental, or you have to delay their move-in because it's not clean. A good cleaning service is absolutely critical, especially if you're doing short-term rentals, right? Lawn service, that's another one, right? If you've got 20 doors, you should not be out mowing 20 lawns, especially if you're in Texas and it's in the summer, right? So you want to hire a lawn service company to do that. So yeah, so Gary, again, perfect examples of what we talked about earlier. A team member is anybody that takes something, part of your business off your plate so you can focus on the higher value, higher dollar productive activities, which is usually building relationships, finding deals, raising money, getting in touch with brokers, all of those kind of things. So, all right, that was great input. Really appreciate that, Gary. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up week 2 here. So we've talked about how to choose a market. We've talked about how to build a team. Next week on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about screening properties. And this is kind of one of my favorite things to talk about. It's very tactile. We're going to be giving out a lot of very specific resources. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how we do it, probably 5 or 10 properties a day. And I'm going to take an actual property that we screened and show you, say, okay, when I check my inbox in the morning and I might have 20 or 25 properties, I can delete a whole bunch of them because they're out of market or the wrong year or whatever. But let's say there's 8 that are like, hey, these could be interesting. You don't want to underwrite or spend a lot of time on everything that happens to look interesting. So we've got a screening process to decide, okay, out of these 8, what are the 2 or 3 that best fit what we're trying to do. So I'm going to walk through that with everybody next week. Again, that applies whether you're buying a single family, a 10 unit, or a 200 unit. And I'm really excited about doing that. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of that. I've gone over it with a few other groups, and everyone's absolutely loved it. So I'm looking forward to doing that next week. In the meantime, go out and take action on the stuff that we've been talking about. It is a difficult market. It's tough to get deals, but there are deals out there, and as long as you're persistent, you take action. So between this week and next week, go start building your team. Whether that's adding brokers, whether that's finding someone to mow the lawn on your fourplex, whether it's getting a bookkeeper to do 2 hours a week of bookkeeping for you. Go start building your team so you can spend more time networking on Bigger Pockets for additional team members and for out there finding deals. I look forward to talking with you next week. In the meantime, if you have any follow-up questions or would just like to connect I'm on all the various social platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn. Feel free to message me on Bigger Pockets. And you can also find me at Vantage Point Acquisitions, which is vpacq.com. In the meantime, happy investing, and we'll talk again soon. Take care.